Hey guys, what is up? My name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and welcome to today's video, which is iconic. It is the OG tag of booktube, and that is the mid-year book freakout tag. This is a staple for me. I love filming these videos every year to be able to watch back and see how my reading is progressing throughout my life. I will leave my playlist, if I have one, for the mid-year book freakout tag if you are curious to see like what last year looked like, as well as all the questions if you want to participate, in the description as well. Feel free to leave your answers in the comments. I love reading and watching all of these videos. So if you want to answer and let me know, do so in the comments. I think I took out one or two questions of this tag, like fictional crush. I don't really have those anymore, but other than that, we'll go with all the basic questions. Let's begin. Starting off strong with the best book you've read so far this year. And we're starting off strong because technically I have like 3 books that came to mind. So I'm gonna quickly share those 3 books. I know I'm doing a horrible thing, like a tag is supposed to like one answer, but I have 3, so. First on the list is Dragonborn. It is one of my most recent reads that I read for episode 6 of Bookshelf Blitz. I'll leave that video up in the cards because I talked a lot about this book, but it is an absolutely stunning, phenomenal middle grade fantasy, first in a series that follows a young girl who ends up learning that she is a dragon. She has to travel to this magical world that she knew nothing about to kind of learn what it is to be a dragon and be safe, because there's this kind of war between humans and dragons, and the story goes from there. The writing is phenomenal, the characters are to die for, and I compare this a lot in my video to The House in the Cerulean Sea in its themes and execution, but I like this 100 times more than I did like The House in the Cerulean Sea. We then have The Last Dragon on Mars by Scott Wrighton. I never know how to pronounce this author's last name, which is another first in a middle grade sci-fi fantasy series that I read earlier this year that I also think I read for, was it Bookshelf Blitz? I think so. I believe the episode in the card somewhere. This was absolutely phenomenal, and another one that took me by surprise because I'm not a big sci-fi reader, but this was incredible. This follows a young boy who lives on Mars, and it's known in this world that there are dragons, and the dragons are heavily involved in the politics and everyday lives. They kind of cohabit with humans, though there aren't a lot of dragons. And we learn that our main character is kind of left on his own on Mars, and he's helping other kids where he lives kind of get through, and so he scavenges for scraps to sell to be able to feed them. And on one of his sessions where he goes scavenging, things kind of go wrong, and he ends up meeting a dragon on Mars that kind of nobody is supposed to know about, and things kind of spiral from there. He obviously has a relationship with the dragon, and it's heavily like the chosen one kind of vibes. I absolutely love this, and the audio for this is fantastic. And my last book for this question is definitely Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. I had a weird history with Yumi where I DNF'd Yumi the first time I actually read this because I was new to fantasy and I didn't really jive with the writing style of this one specifically. But I went back to it and I bawled my eyes out reading this. This is a beautiful story. It is part of the Cosmere, so it is like more, well, for me, I'm trying to focus on the Cosmere right now, so it was more important that I get through this one. The love story between Yumi and Painter, both within them, like with themselves and with each other, has literally changed the way I see things, and it is the most beautiful blueprint ever for romance novels, and it just did something to me. I could relate to these characters so incredibly much. My love for Yumi is so hard to describe, but I resonate with so much of who she is, but I also resonate with Painter, and it's just a whole thing of relating to characters while also loving the relationship that they have with each other, and the world building was cool. The thing is, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is very like day-to-day kind of anime manga vibes, but in a fantasy story that is in a bigger world. I bawled my eyes out. I think I might have a screenshot. I'll insert it here. You know, gotta humble ourselves, but yeah, I think about this book a lot. Question number 2 is best sequel you've read so far this year. Usually I always kind of struggle with this because I'm good at either reading standalones or starting a bunch of series and then not continuing them. However, in 2025, one of my goals, one of the prompts I have on my book bingo board from hell, which I can leave somewhere, is to finish 5 series, and so I have been prioritizing continuing series. So yet again, I have 3 answers. Bear with me. I won't talk too in detail about these because they are obviously sequels. First on my list is Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Austin. This is the 3rd book in the Amari and the Night Brothers series, which is definitely one of my favorite series of all time. Well, actually, I could say that about all of them. I was worried that book 3 was going to disappoint because when you're so invested in a series, you want them to hit. And this was definitely a 5 stars. I am so happy with where we are going with this plot line. Everything made sense. It's so cohesive. The character growth is phenomenal. The plot lines make sense. B.B. Austin is definitely a master also at recapping what has happened in previous books and interweaving that with a plot that makes you feel like you're advancing and not just staying stuck in previous books with a recap. It's a phenomenal thing. He does characters extremely well, and as I said, his plots are very coherent. I'm not seeing a lot of like plot holes or things that you're like, this does not make sense with the rest of the series. Why are we doing this? Like, everything in here made sense and I had a blast doing it. I listened to the audiobook for this one. Absolutely phenomenal. Then we have The Midnight Orchestra by Jessica Corey, which is the 2nd book in the Mystic School of Musicraft, which again, one of my favorite books of all time. I think this book tops it. I love this series to pieces. Again, these on audio are the way to go. They are incredible. They are very immersive. They have the music that plays. I will leave a video talking about my top 6 middle grade books of all time in the card somewhere. If you haven't heard of these series, they're all on here. And I was very glad that I loved book 2 as much. I think in this one, what I really enjoyed is the relationships, because in book 1, we're introduced to a lot of different relationship dynamics, and in book 2, there are people who are brought into the story that I was afraid would change things, but I really like the evolution of the characters and their relationships within each other. I thought the plotline was interesting, and again, it felt very organic. Everything flowed. I was not disappointed. I was afraid this book would have second book syndrome. It does not. This was lovely. And then we have Skandar and the Chaos Trials, which is book 3 in the Skandar series, which I talk about all the time, I'm well aware. Again, I'll leave all my Skandar playlist up in the cards, but this book is my favorite in the series so far, because, again, of the relationship dynamics, but also because this book focuses a lot on what it is to be a family and what siblings mean, and the difference between found family and blood family, and how we do things differently for both, and how both impact our life differently. It really focuses on the relationship between Skandar and his sister, but also Skandar and his friends, and how having both of those relationships can create conflicts, and where do our values stand. I also think that the plot line of this one was really fun. I cried a lot in this. I don't think I really cried reading book 2, maybe once, but this one truly made me bawl my eyes out, which I don't do a lot reading books, but I'm just so emotionally invested with these characters. It was beautiful. I loved what A.F. Stedman did with the characters, and I am afraid, because book 5 comes out later this year, the end of the series. But so far, so good. I think every book she writes is better than the last, so I'm excited to keep going. Question number 3 is a book you were anticipating but haven't gotten to yet, and for that I have to say, why am I holding this so weird? Dreamslinger by Gracie Kim. This is a middle grade fantasy, which again I think is the first in a series. This is pitched as a blend between Amari and the Night Brothers as well as Pokemon, and I did read like a tiny bit of this, but I want to listen to it on audio because I sampled it, and I just know there's going to be a lot within the audio that is going to make this experience even more interesting. But yeah, I think the way this is pitched is like, it doesn't get any better than that. Being an Amari girly and loving the implication that Pokemon can have in this story sounds really up my alley, and also the cover gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And I know that Gracie Kim is a very beloved author. I have not read from them before, but I'm excited to do so. The next question is most anticipated releases for the second half of the year, and for that I have two. There's a lot of books I was looking forward to. I obviously make anticipated releases videos once or twice a year, but my two standouts, one I did mention already, and that is Skandar 5. It is the last book in the Skandar series, and I cannot believe it is almost here. It releases in August. It's kind of like the end of an era for Skandar and for my reading. When I fell in love with Skandar, it really opened the door to middle grade. I was appreciating reading middle grade, but it's what solidified, one, this channel as being focused on middle grade a lot, and what made me love fantasy and unicorns and dragons as much as I do now. And it's really shifted my reading from reading primarily romance to reading middle grade fantasy and adult fantasy, and I think it's an interesting switch in my progression as a reader, and I do think Skandar is at the root of it all. And for me, this book was life-changing. I think that it's what made me find my niche, so the fact that it's coming out in less than like 2 months, it's both very exciting but also very scary, so that is definitely like a highlight for me. And the second book I am anticipating the most is the Chronicles of Whetherwhy 2 by Anna James. The Chronicles of Whetherwhy is a book that I read last year and I fell in love. Anna James is the author of Pages & Co., Alice with a Y, The Chronicles of Whetherwhy. She has a lot of books. I love every single book she's published, but Chronicles of Whetherwhy truly took the cake. It is a gorgeous exploration of siblings, of magic schools, but it does things so differently, and I was so captivated by Chronicles of Whetherwhy, and since I finished that book, I have been anticipating the release of the second. So the fact that I think it's coming out in September, we're getting so close to both of these releases, and I'm incredibly excited. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment, and for me, unfortunately, that has to be Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundle. This is a middle grade fantasy series that I was very excited to start. I thought I was going to absolutely love this, and unfortunately had to DNF it. I think I talked enough about that book, and I don't want to spread negativity, especially in regards to middle grade, but unfortunately, it really did not do it for me. I thought the plot did not make sense. There were a lot of conveniences, and the middle grade characters did not act like middle grade children. Even their decisions were kind of chaotic in my brain, and the adults didn't act like adults. So all of that put me off. The world building was interesting enough. I did like the actual creatures, but the storyline for me was very incoherent with a lot of plot holes. So I decided to DNF it at the 50% mark. So that was definitely my biggest disappointment. The next question is your biggest surprise so far this year, and for that I definitely have to go with Kiki's Delivery Service, because I expected like this to be like an okay time. I am trying to read these books to kind of read them before I watch the Studio Ghibli movies. I was not super aware of what Kiki's Delivery Service was, and I binged this in a setting, and it felt so comforting, in a book that I know I'm going to want to return to this fall. This is so atmospheric and cozy, and just like reading this with a cup of hot chocolate just soothes the soul, and I guess I didn't expect loving this book so much, but also needing this book at the time I read it. I read it during March break, and it very much is the kind of book that just calms your head. It's episodic, it's cute, it's short, but it just, yeah, ultimate cozy vibes, and I'm surprised at how much I love this. If you've watched my most recent episode of Bookshelf Blitz, you would also know that I also read Howl's Moving Castle, and for me, Kiki is the superior book within those two. The next question is favorite new author, debut, or new to you, and for that I would have to say very classic answer, which is the author of Dragonborn as well as the author of The Last Dragon on Mars. They are two authors that I know have other books that are published in the middle grade genre, but I had never read of them before, and I was incredibly surprised at the mastery of the skill that they have, the interweaving of characters, being able to write female main characters. All of that interwoven together made me appreciate their work a lot. Now, have I read their entire backlist? No, but this year they are definitely the standout authors when it comes to reading books that I had like from authors I've never seen. I would count Rebecca Genchak as well, but I do think I read like 1 or 2 of her books in 2024. However, she is definitely the spotlight author for romance when it comes to this year. I am binging her backlist. I am almost done with the Holland Brothers series, the Campus Wallflower series, and I'm loving every minute of it. So she is definitely a spotlight author as well. Also, I'm sorry if you hear a leaf blower. My neighbors decided it was the perfect time to blow leaves. The next question is newest favorite character. The broad answer here is really any character written by Brandon Sanderson that is female. I pretty much gravitate towards all his female main characters, though I do like the ensemble of pretty much every work I've read. But my 2 stands out for this year are definitely Vin from Mistborn and Yumi from Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I have a very easy time connecting with these characters. Like Shallan is one of my all-time favorite characters, and Vin and Yumi are both characters that I really love. I love Tress. Like, Tress is definitely my favorite character. It's my favorite Brandon Sanderson book, but everything he writes I relate to, and so definitely Vin and Yumi. They are very different characters, but both have both strong suits and insecurities that I can relate to, and I can really appreciate reading and experiencing their life stories through their lens, and it's just such an interesting feeling for me, and I'm really grateful that I get to experience these books for a first time. I need to keep going with Mistborn. I just read the first book, so obviously that could all change, but for now these are my 2 favorite characters that I've read about this year. As for a book that made you cry, I named a bunch of books that have made me cry. I don't know what it is this year. I think maybe I'm just emotional, but the highlight definitely is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, because I sobbed like an actual child so many times reading that book. I was so emotional, like every kind of emotion. I was happy, I was kicking my feet, I was crying, I was angry, I was clutching my pearls, I was holding on to my kitchen table while listening to the audiobook because it was so heart-wrenching but beautiful at the same time. The carnival scene, straight through the heart, like beautiful moments of everyday life, but also you know that these characters are going to have a hard ending, and so being aware of that and just expecting bad things to happen and then seeing their kind of life unravel and everything like that impacts their connection truly broke my heart, but it put it back together at the same time. But I definitely bawled my eyes out. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy, and for that my answer has to be Felix and the Future Agency. This is again the first in a middle grade series. It is about this young boy named Felix who has these premonitions. He can talk to ghosts and they kind of tell him what's going to happen, and he's recruited by a government agency and has to enter this kind of magical world he had no idea existed, learn about his powers, train, and kind of deal with all of that while making friends and discovering parts of him that he didn't know. This book was just so fun, creative, and filled with whimsy and imagination, and I really did appreciate what the author did with the story and the characters, and it felt like a good, fun time, an epic adventure that I love. It reminds me of like Percy Jackson and all of these iconic middle grade books, and I just had a smile the whole way through, even though obviously there are stakes at play. I found myself being so incredibly happy and just along for the ride the entire time, so it's definitely a standout for that. The next question is most beautiful book you've acquired this year, and I have 2 answers for that, but I'm just gonna choose one, and that is my Dragonsteel edition of Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, because of my love for the story. Now, I know I just recently hauled, actually you won't have seen that video yet, so I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm going with Tress of the Emerald Sea because, one, this book is just the most stunning thing I've seen in my entire life, but Tress is also my tied for first place favorite like standalone story. Trust is part of the Cosmere, but it's a standalone book, and I don't think I've related with a character as much as I did Trust in several years. The last time was when I read Listen to Your Heart by Casey West and immediately fell in love with our main protagonist. But there's something about Tress and the way she has her heart on her sleeve and the way that she is very much into empathy and believing in others and just all of that, and the discussions on empathy and how it's a strength and everything that is interwoven and all the values that this book display, for me, make it such an iconic and heartwarming story. But it's also kind of like a Princess Bride retelling that is flipped. It's just, everything about this book is very beautiful, and I feel like this artwork perfectly encapsulates Tress. The end pages are some of my favorite end pages as well, because we have that cup, which I still dream of owning, the Dragonsteel edition of that cup, with the butterflies. I am a butterfly girly. I have a butterfly tattoo. Like, all of this book just resonates with me. It's my favorite color. All of it, I feel like, is so me. So I had to go with this one, and I'm so glad that I finally have this in my possession. And the last question I am going to answer is, what books do you need to read before the end of 2025? And the easy answer to that is all of my priority reads. So I made a video at the beginning of the year called 15 in 2025, where I highlighted 15 books that I wanted to read as a priority in 2025. Of that, I've read 4 or 5, so I clearly need to get on that, but I have at least read a few. But those are definitely my priority, so if you want to see all of that, I believe it's somewhere. It's a fun video to watch, and I think I chose some good books. I'm still interested in pretty much all of them, which works in my favor, but that is really what I need to focus on for the rest of the year. Reading some adult fantasy as well, and then deep diving into middle grade even more. So that is all I have to say about the mid-year book freakout tag. I will have a stats video most likely up before the end of the month, kind of talking about my mid-year and how my year is going in reading. It's definitely one of my favorite years so far when it comes to reading, both because I feel like I'm reading a good amount, but also because the books I have been reading are genuinely incredible and I'm having so much fun reading. So it is a blessing, definitely. Again, leave me your answers to this tag in the comments, and if you just want to tell me you were here, leave me a butterfly emoji, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.